Hello guys, today we're going to be solving the number 18 from the 2021 Fall Edition AMC 10A. Now, this problem in my opinion does not deserve the place of number 18. Because in this problem, you kind of just bash out and find out the number of boxes of fields of farm kind of just by manually drawing and placing them in. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started. A farmer's rectangular field is partitioned into a 2x2 grid of 4 rectangular sections as shown in the figure. In each section, the farmer will plant one crop: corn, wheat, soybean, or potatoes. The farmer does not want to grow corn and wheat in any two sections that share a border, and the farmer does not want to grow soybean and potatoes in any two sections that share a border. Given these restrictions, in how many ways can the farmer choose crops to plant in each of the 4 sections of the field? And then the choices are 12, 64, 84, 90, and 144. So what we're going to do in this problem is first look back in the problem. So it says in each section, a farmer will plant one crop: corn, wheat, soybean, or potatoes. So we can underline our important information. So one important such is in each section, a farmer will plant the one crop. So that is a very essential thing. And how they do not want to grow corn and wheat in any two sections that share a border, or soybean and potatoes in any two sections that share a border. So now that we've identified the most important information in it, what we're going to be doing in this problem is going to be trying to manually draw out some ideas here. Not by drawing out all possible cases, because that would take a long time, but we can draw out one for an example, and then we can understand from there. So let's draw out a few. Okay, I've gotten one. So basically, what we're going to do in this one is kind of think of a way how we'll format these crops. One such way we can think of is having corn in the first quadrant. Now you can pick any crop, but I'm just going to stick with corn right now. So we put corn in this first quadrant for an example. Then we can work from there. So now that we have corn here, which I represented as C because it's easier to use the first letters, and also because none of the first letters are going to be the same, we have corn in this first section here. So now that we have corn here, another thing we can put in a different section is also corn, because corn can go next to each other. So let's just put corn here for an example. Now in this section, let's select a different crop besides corn, like potatoes, because then with potatoes we can alternate the potatoes and corn in the fields of crop. So let's just put potatoes here. Now in this final box, we can only put 2 such crops, which is corn or potatoes. Because if we put wheat here, it's not allowed, since you can't grow corn and wheat in any two sections that share a border. And if it's soybean, then we can't grow any soybean or potato in any two sections that share a border. So how about we will put the 2 options that are available in here to represent the choices we have here. So corn or potato. And that is for an example. Now, what we can do with this is a lot more versatile than you think, because we can switch the location of potato and corn. So let's draw this out again and do that. So let's just put our plants here. Corn we'll have in first quadrant. Next one we'll have corn because we're alternating potatoes and corn this time. And we'll have potatoes here. And the same result will come. Either corn and potatoes can go in the final quadrant. So let's just write C or P. So those are two very important cases. But the thing is, we realized that we can do this with a bunch of other crops like soybean. For example, we can put soybean in one of them and potatoes and soybean in another. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that instead of potato, we could use soybean, and in the final box, we'll just put soybean or corn. So let me just represent that to make it a bit easier. So here, we can put corn here, soybean here, corn here, and then this one we can put corn or soybean. So that is a very similar thing that can happen with other crops besides potato. And we could also alternate soybean and corn in this field. So if we do that, let's just draw another box up. Then what we can do next is we can just alternate corn and soybean, and you'll get the same result. Very similar to what we did in the other case of having the potatoes and corn. So now another thing we can do with this is, what if we have potatoes and soybean in the other two quadrants of this corn quadrant? Like, for example, we'd have potatoes here, and then we could have soybean here. And the thing is, since they're not touching by any order, then in the final quadrant, we can put wheat because it's not touching corn, or we can put corn. So let's just kind of draw what would that represent out. So let's just put it here. We will put corn, soybean, and potatoes. And in this final section, we can either put corn or wheat because the wheat isn't touching the corn, and corn because there's no wheat around to prevent it. So we can just put CW to represent it. Now we can alternate this again, so let's just write that out to make it more simpler. So we will put it here as corn, soybean, potato, and corn and wheat can go in the final box. Now, these are very special boxes because in these boxes, you don't have two of the same crop. Like, next to corn, you would have potato and potato. But we can actually try that. And to make it easier for you to understand, we'll draw another diagram to explain it. So we can put corn in the first quadrant, but then what if in the other quadrants, instead of putting two different crops, we can put two of the same crops, like potato and potato. Then in the final quadrant, like 3 different crops can go there, like more potatoes, corn, and wheat, because corn doesn't have any wheat to touch a border with it, and wheat because corn is not touching its border in this case, and potatoes because there's no soybean. So we'll have 3 different options for this one. So let's just write them out. C for corn, then the W for wheat, and P for potatoes. Now same thing as this, but with a different crop. We can have soybean surrounding the corn in the first quadrant. So let's describe that and show it. So what I was previously trying to say is we can have corn, soybean, and in the final quadrant we can put either corn, wheat, or soybean. And same rules as before. We can put corn because there's no wheat around to touch it, wheat because the corn isn't sharing a border with it, or soybean because there's no potatoes to touch a border with it. So now we can do this with one last crop. And that crop is gonna just be simply more corn. We'll have 3 corn in 3 quadrants of the box. So let me show what I'm trying to say. We can have corn here, we can have corn here, we can have corn here, and in the final box, we won't be able to put wheat, but we can put soybean, potato, or corn. Because for soybean, no potatoes to touch it. For potato, no soybean can touch it. And for corn, it's because there's no wheat, like at all in this field. So we can put corn, soybean, or potato. Now what I have shown here is we can now count out how many different options there are for each of the boxes we drew out here. So for this first box that I'm hovering over, you see the C and the P. Those represent the different options in the final quadrant of this field here. And it can show how many different possibilities it has. And for this one, there's 2 possibilities to determine its farm. So we can just mark this one as 2 maybe to make it more simple. So this one's 2. And same, this one's also 2. This one's also 2. This one is also 2. This one is also 2. This one is also 2. And then for the last 3 quadrants I didn't mark it, there'll be 3 because in the final quadrant they have 3 possibilities to go there. So let's mark it there. This one's gonna be 3. This one's gonna be 3. And this one's gonna be 3. So now we can add them all up. So let's add it up. And when we add it up, we'll be getting 21. But just for confirmation, let's add it up manually. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. And now that is gonna be equal to 21. Now, you may be wondering what to do after you get the 21. Well, there's still one more thing to do. Because corn will not always be the first crop in the first quadrant. You could have 3 other crops. So what you're gonna do here is multiply this 21 by 4 to represent how much other crops can go in the first quadrant and which can determine the other crops in the other quadrants. So 21 times 4 is simply just gonna be equal to 84. So we can mark 84 as our answer here. Now, as you can see in this problem, we kind of just simply wrote out cases and possibilities of each field. And we didn't use anything advanced. We kind of just used some simple counting. And we were able to do a bit of probability to solve this problem very fast and very efficiently, which could always get you an extra 6 points on the AMC 10. But anyways, as you can see, we have solved this problem, meaning we are now officially finished.